that's ISO.
Rack it up, I got a bit of the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse. Ball it up, I'm with the gang, we taking shots off the rebound. Fucking my post to say now, I've been humble too long, yeah. Tell them all to stay calm.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Wealth on the Rocks. I'm super happy and honored to have you here with us. And we got here Tyler George. He's a dear friend of mine. We've been in business for a while, and he's a fractional CGO. I'm super excited for you to share your journey and your story. Dude, take it away.
Well, yeah, dude, it's an honor to be here. For those of you who don't know, David and I have known each other for a minute. And we've crossed paths so many different ways. Yeah. I feel like it was the first time that I met you was like maybe poker or something. We were doing something. Yeah. Right?
This was a while ago. Yeah.
And I just remember being like, dude, this guy is super sharp. And at the time, you had, I think you maybe still do, you still have the hot sauce, right?
No, we sold that, yeah. I don't know if I told you about that. Yeah, we had our hot sauce company a few years ago. And
the hot sauce was fire.
It's a pretty...
In more ways than one.
It's a fun adventure. I mean... Listen, starting a retail sort of business, right? Like you're selling to, we're trying to get into big stores and things. So we got to a place to where we had a distributor. We were trying to get things moving. We were with some contacts in Canada and all this, and things ended up happening. They went a different direction, and we ended up selling part of the company and just sort of closing it out. But it ended up being quite of a money pit, to be honest. So we were spending a lot of money on it.
It's tough when you have that physical product and you have inventory and there's all these other layers you got to deal with. But I remember that was the first time that I feel like the first time we interacted. But dude, it's an honor to be here and to see what you're doing with the podcast. And honestly, I think the best part about podcasts is the fact that you get to hang out with people you like.
Absolutely.
And just ask them questions all day. So,
that's pretty cool. And we're drinking some cool stuff today. Okay. I had some couple guests that made fun of this. We don't have any ice, which is funny because the podcast name is Wealth on the Rocks, but I'm a person that really likes bourbon neat. Tradition.
I'm the same way.
So maybe I need to do...
Maybe we should.
Wealth is neat or something, you know. But we're drinking some really cool stuff. For you, those of you who probably know about bourbon, that you probably know about some of this. But Blanton's Gold is a specific type of blends. They made it outside of the U.S. or they made it here, but it's only available to purchase outside of the U.S. And so whenever I go back to Spain, back home, I get to bring some bottles here, and so we got like just enough probably to like a little bit. So
honored right
we'll
now.
We'll kill the bottle, and then we got a couple other things too here. Yeah. We'll see. But
dude, I'm so excited.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, it's been I don't know. It's been cool seeing you have the podcast grow, and for me, there's been a lot. There's a lot that has changed since we'd first met.
Yeah.
And David and I have worked together in business for a long time, helping people, financially coaching people to make the wisest decisions possible. And I think really just educating people on what they should have learned in high school about money, really.
Right.
And one of the things that I realized along the way was when you give people the best systems and they still don't execute, it has nothing to do with the system.
Right.
It has everything to do with their mindset. It has everything to do with their beliefs or their story around what they believe to be true for themselves. And that kind of started my journey in the mindset space. But before we go do that, I feel like we should...
Yeah, cheers. This is perfect. Woo. Man. What a nice bourbon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's way smoother than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's from 2017 also. This is like back in the day. Actually from 2021 was the dump date. 3/11/2021. I thought it was earlier for some reason.
So I can't get this in the United States.
No, well, yes and no. So you can get just about any bourbon you want if you're willing to pay the price.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places you can find bourbon at a secondary price. So like I don't know how much you're in the world of the bourbon, but you can. So there's a lot of different groups and organizations, and you can have like different connections to stores and things like that. A lot of times, it used to be where like some of these nice bourbons were for sale at the store, but then what happens is that like all these people that are sort of patrons of the stores, right? You end up having this like friendships with the owner and all these different things, and then the different stores will get different allocations. So depends on your volume and whatever else metrics, right? You get different special bottles allocated to your store.
And I went to a store that had Pappy, and they're like, well, we have it in the back, but like we're not going to give it to you because you don't have enough points here.
Sure.
And I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, you have to spend like $2,000 here before you can get access.
Even they get
So I was like, well, this is dumb.
But
you know, I'm glad that I guess it's really about knowing the right people, creating the right relationships.
Absolutely.
And then you'll be able to have the right opportunity to get
Absolutely. No, I love it.
Which I feel like is it's really just a metaphor for life.
Yep, absolutely. And honestly, man, I mean, we can jump right into it. I mean, I'm so curious about. And by the way, quick parentheses here before we get into that. I realized earlier before we sat down that the jacket you're wearing is an actual Star Wars jacket.
Yes.
So I thought it was like from some NASCAR team or something, and then I saw Anakin, and I was like, wait, is that? And then I saw the thing over here with the my goodness, razor? That's so funny. I was like, wait, this is actually a Star Wars thing. Which, by the way, I know you're a very huge Star Wars fan.
Star Wars has always been something that's been very dear to my heart, and I didn't realize all the layers to it until I talked to my dad, because I asked him, like, well, when was the first time that you saw Star Wars?
Yeah.
And he's like, this is kind of a wild story, but this was 1977 when the first one came out, I believe. And my dad had, like, should have put something somewhere, and he didn't, and accidentally flooded his basement.
Oh.
Like, literally, they flooded the whole basement. It was basically his fault.
Well.
And my grandfather, his dad comes down and, you know, instead of being mad at him, maybe I think for the first time in my dad's life was like kind of showed him grace and was like, hey, listen, like sometimes we make decisions and there's really bad consequences that come from it.
Sure.
But I want to, you know, show you an example of what grace looks like. And so instead of punishing him, my grandfather took my dad to the drive-in, and what just so happened to be playing was Star Wars.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And so Star Wars has this like really sweet spot in my family's life because my dad's like a big like Star Wars fan. My grandfather's a big Star Wars fan, and I've always been fascinated by the hero's journey and the journey of Luke Skywalker, who's one of the main protagonists in Star Wars. That journey of fighting for what you know is right and resisting the temptation of the dark side has been like a theme throughout my life. But also being able to embrace, like not ignore the dark side, but to embrace it.
Sure.
And not run away from it.
Right.
So Star Wars has always been a big influence in my life.
That's amazing. And so walk me through the evolution, because you're, you know, besides the Star Wars, I know you've been involved in the financial services industry, having a successful career, and sort of maybe transitioning over the coaching space, fractional CGO. Talk us through that.
So, you know, for most of my life, for the last 7 years, from before that, I grew up in music. So music was like my whole world. Me and my twin brother had a duo. It's called the George Twins, and we did really well, like in the music space for, you know, streams and the amount of people that listen to our music, and we got to travel the world and travel out of the U.S. playing music, which was kind of the dream. The downside was, you basically have to live off of ramen to survive.
I was gonna say they paid you in, you know, bologna sandwiches, and you know,
it's not like I could afford a vacation. I'll put it that way. And so I realized like I needed something I needed to learn how money works. And then the beautiful thing happened when one of our dear friends, his name was Nick Bosley, we met in the mall like 7 years ago, and he showed me a little bit about what he did. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with helping people in the middle class achieve financial freedom.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of resources for those who are high net worth, and there are some even programs for people that don't have anything.
Right.
But it's that kind of middle space that people are, abandoned in and are really stuck.
Right.
So being able to give people hope musically was the whole goal why I did music. Being able to go, hey, I'm going to write a song, give somebody hope. Then when it came to helping people financially, it was giving people hope, but in a different medium. So now I'm doing it through finances.
Right.
And then I had one client interaction where I just kind of sat and I listened. And I had this whole budget and like system prepared for them, but when we hop on the Zoom call, they're just like, it's a couple.
Yeah.
And they were at each other's throats. And I just kind of was like, hey, this might be the best piece of like financial advice I ever give you, but I just have like one question. Do you guys have a consistent date night? And they like looked at each other and they're like, no, they'd been married for like 4 or 5 years at the time. I was like, I could give you this budget and set you up with all the things, but I think if you did that, it would solve everything else. And so it really wasn't smart of me to be like, hey, like, go do a date night and then come back and I'll set you up. But I basically was just like, you need to solve the issue number one first. And then get on the same page and we'll circle back.
How amazing is that? My goodness.
And I didn't hear anything back for like 3 months. And I was like, all right. And then I ended up seeing them out and about. And like the wife was a little overweight when we talked. But like when I talked to her, when I saw her again, like I didn't recognize her, how much weight she'd lost in like such a quick amount of time.
Yeah.
And the husband was kind of like trying to find purpose, and now he's becoming a pilot. And
nice.
It was the first time that I realized like one piece of advice, one question, completely changed the trajectory of their life. And they came up to me and said, Tyler, we can't tell you how much like that conversation meant to us. And our lives have been like so much better because of it. And
that's so incredible, yeah.
I made no money from that question.
Sure.
But it changed their life. And it changed my life in a lot of ways to go, oh my gosh, the power of questions is way more impactful than I ever thought it could be. And so it kind of started me down this trajectory of like, what if I could learn to ask really good questions? And how could that help enhance what I do? So eventually I just started taking like different courses on how to coach people, how to ask good questions.
Yeah.
And one of them was by the woman who coaches all of Tony Robbins' coaches.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And it blew my mind. Like, most of the coaching was learning how not to give people advice.
Just listen?
How to listen.
Yeah, yeah.
And it, like, to this day, has made a massive impact on what I do and how I teach people. So, from the financial coaching, the fractional CGO thing has kind of emerged from really just trying to continue to solve the core problems for people.
Sure.
Which is like, hey, you have a financial issue? Boom. I can give you the systems, the tools, the strategy.
Right.
But you won't ever execute on this until you believe you're worthy of it.
Yeah.
And that has been my goal in this next season, is helping people believe they're worthy of abundance, as well as creating the systems and the tools for it. So the two questions that I ask people, and this can be helpful for the audience.
If you're taking notes, take some notes, please.
Two most important questions you can ask. And we can even do it right now if you're down for it.
Do it, yeah, let's do it.
So first question is this. What do you want?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big one.
So, and I would just go, there's so many different categories you could kind of place what you want. But like, from your gut, like, if you were like, man, what do I want? Like, first question is, what do you want? What comes up instinctively?
Instinctively, I would say time freedom with my family.
Time freedom with family. Okay. So the second question is, do you believe you're worthy of it?
1,000%.
1,000%. So a lot of times when we when it comes to worthiness, there's only three options. One is we are running from it, we're trying to prove it, or we believe it.
Okay.
So if we want something, and this would be my only pushback to going 100%. If you want it, you don't want something you already have.
Right.
So if you go, man, I believe I'm worthy of it, that means then you already have it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So most of the time, if you want anything, it's because you believe you don't have the thing.
Right.
Right? So if you believe you're worthy of the thing, then it should already be done.
Wow. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So part of even time freedom with family is going, okay, worthiness, there's the worthiness question, there's the want question. So for, I guess, time freedom with family, my next question would be, what does that look like for you? Like, how do you know that you've achieved that?
I think that's a good question. I think it all kind of ties with the financial independence too a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So for me, and it's kind of an interesting timely question too, because obviously just recently embarked in this entrepreneurial route, dude. Both feet in, I was, to give you some context here, part of my journey has been always wanting to be an entrepreneur, always doing something on the side, always hustling. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, right?
Yeah.
Always having a side hustle, always doing something to sort of quote unquote escape, or just figuring out something that you can work for yourself and be in control of your own destiny, right? Totally. And we're sort of in the beginning stages too of achieving that, which is super exciting and scary at the same time. Which we can talk a little bit about that, because I know you're very good also helping people with like limiting beliefs and things like that. But one of the biggest things is for me having the financial independence enough to being able to travel. I feel like is a big thing for my family, and just things like, hey, let's pack the bags and go to Disney, this weekend. Like that would be something for me that I could say, hey, I have both the financial freedom and the financial independence, right? To just up and go in a whim, take my family, let's go to Puerto Rico next month, like that's probably when I can probably say, hey, we got something going on. We got right? Something. Yeah. So
which to me makes a lot of sense. So
just creating those memories, right, and being able to So
I mean, what I hear you saying is this: when I get to the place financially that I can, at drop of a hat, whatever it is, like we can just go to Disney if we want. Right. Like that is one of the ways that you measure time freedom, financial freedom, right? Mm-hmm. So some of that would be if like, okay, awesome. We know what you want was that time freedom, financial freedom.
Yep.
Okay, how do we measure it? Which is, okay, we can spontaneously go to Disney.
Right.
Now, the truth is, you probably could spontaneously go to Disney, charge a bunch of credit cards, and go right now. Right. Which is technically now you have the thing. Right. So one of the things I do a lot of times with clients is going, let's get really specific around what things mean and how you measure it. Because you go, it's the whole like, hey, I'd like more money. And someone goes, here's $1. And you're like, congratulations, more money. Yeah. So oftentimes figuring out what we really want is the key to unlocking everything else. Yeah. And being clear on the language to go, how do I know if I'm close or if I'm far away from that? Right. Now, this is something I'm still working through. And this I've literally been wrestling with this last week. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. But for me, one of the biggest things I've really been trying to pray for was, once I have like financial abundance, like peace, then I'll be like really like, then I'll feel really good about myself. It's this like if-then statement. Like, if I get this, then I get this. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've started to realize recently is like, life is everything. It all comes down to the story that you're telling yourself. Right. Because I was beating myself up of like, man, I don't have this much money in savings, which was like, that was kind of my like goal. And I think for a lot of people, like,
Yeah.
everybody kind of has that goal of, like, man, if we have this much in savings, we feel really good. Or if we have
Right.
this much in savings, okay, we need to try and figure things out or cut things out. And so the word was, like, I want to be wealthy. And I got so obsessed with, like, I have to get to this number. I got to this number.
Yeah.
That I missed out on all the other ways that I was already wealthy. And one of the things that I've been wrestling with, and what I really do believe to be true, is that we already are who we're most desperate to become.
Right.
And that is kind of like a reverse engineer of, like, hey, if I want to be wealthy, what can I do to feel wealthy immediately? How can I, instead of thinking that I'm not wealthy and I have to go get wealthy,
Sure.
how can I believe I'm wealthy and attract wealth to me? And that shift changed everything for me, because I'll give you an example, and maybe I'll ask you this on the time question. So, like, if, for example, for me, it was like wealth, like I like wealth.
Right.
But for you, it's this time freedom with family.
Right.
What are ways...
It kind of goes interconnected.
There's a lot disconnected there. But what if, or what would it look like, and maybe even have your brain scan to go, what if you already had that?
What would it feel like?
Yeah. Like, what... If you could scan kind of your current environment, what's happening with family.
Right.
Because all of this is like what we're comparing to and the stories that we're telling ourselves.
Right.
So, like, Disney, for example, is like, like, that's a story to go, oh, yeah, I have that now.
Right.
Was there ever a time, maybe even looking back in the past, that, like, maybe younger version of you would have been like, holy crap, this future version of me has a podcast.
Yeah.
And, like, tell me about, like, maybe could be 2 or 3 years ago or whenever, like...
Well, if we really want to go back, I don't know how much we've talked about this, but I'm originally from Spain, right? Moved here about 10 years ago. Prior to that, I grew up, my family was not, like, super poor, but it wasn't even middle America either, you know? So it was... my parents were working around the clock to just survive. And it's always been, I feel like I always grew up with that survival sort of mindset. And that's what I saw my family do on a daily basis. And I thought that was the norm. I don't know what clicked into my head that even from a young age, I saw that and I always thought, I wanna be different. I don't want this, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like I didn't have any friends that were wealthy. I didn't have any friends that you know. All I was familiar with was the survival mode.
Yeah.
And I saw the stress financially. I saw the stress emotionally with my parents. My parents ended up getting divorced when I was a younger age, and so I know that all those things affected our family. But then I also saw a couple examples of other family members, like my uncle has his own pub, his own bar in Madrid. Another family, they have an architectural design firm. Another family member has a trucking business, very successful trucking business. And so some of the other people that I saw around it, outside of my immediate family, were business owners and entrepreneurs.
Wow.
And so I feel like I admire that sort of different lifestyle. And even if it wasn't like I'm a multimillionaire or like all these different things, right? Like, but I saw that they had maybe a different view in life, right?
Would it be fair to say they had more time freedom?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So, and sometimes my uncle was always working at the pub, so he probably didn't have a lot of time freedom. But he did what he loved, and he took control of his life and his destiny, and he didn't. He never had to answer to anybody, and I feel like that. Yeah. Maybe that was part of, like, I wanted to do something that I could take control and ownership of my life and not have to depend on anybody else. I feel like my mom, and partly, I mean, this is like a therapy session here, but where, she always wanted me to be a teacher. And in a way, I feel like I teach now, in many ways. But it partly probably because of the Civil War and all the life that they lived was a lot of, you need to find a job that's secure, that you're gonna be able to provide for your family and never miss a beat, right? Yeah. Even if it's the bare minimum potatoes, right? But it's you have something that's consistently coming in, and that was the sort of the scarcity mindset, right? And that's what I've been sort of trying to move away from. I moved across the ocean, right, to the cheesy line of opportunities. That's as cheesy as you want to say that.
That's first of all, to say back what you're saying, because I think this is really fascinating, and just let me know if this resonates. So you're saying the goal for you is time freedom, but in the past you're coming from a family that was. Maybe you didn't have like the perfect example of what like time freedom looked like. Yeah. But the main thing is that you were taking ownership of your life and you were not letting other people, especially a boss, dictate who you were. So at that time, it was a dream. It was a dream that, man, what would it be like if I could do that? Yeah. And what I think is really interesting, especially the timing of this entire conversation, I know, right? Is this is the week or I don't know how long it's been since you made that decision.
4 days.
So it's 4 days that this dream that you've had as a kid, you achieved that dream 4 days ago. Yeah.
In a way, yes. It's still molding, but
it's still molding. But currently, there are no bosses telling you that you have to be somewhere. Nope. You can't take time off to go to Disney.
Yep. That's right. So it's crazy. It's crazy. If you think about it like this, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So all of this is the stories that we tell ourselves. Right. So the story could be, I'm not enough until I take my kids to Disney whenever they want.
Sure, sure.
Or the story could be, I'm fulfilling a dream that my younger self set before me.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But those two different stories have two different emotions tied to them, right?
Right.
Because if you go, and this quote, I don't know where I heard of this first, but the quote wrecked me. It says, belief in a future heaven creates a present hell. So if you go, heaven is outside of me, the kingdom is outside of me, then what you're assuming is that you're already living in hell.
You're never getting there.
And you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
But if you can show up and go, no, the kingdom is now, and I'm going to foster this wealth, this time freedom. I believe it's already a part of me. I just got to go get it. Right. Completely different mindset shift. What you're talking about. And there's no scarcity anymore. Right. Because you already have it. Yeah. You go, man. Just for an example, there's these two stories would be, I'm not there yet is one story.
Sure.
And the other one is, I'm in the process of fulfilling. Yeah. So you're currently in the process of fulfilling younger David's dream.
That's true. Yeah.
Which sets...
And I'm a whole lot closer than I was 4 days ago.
Totally. So that's my point when it comes to you already are who you're most desperate to become. Yeah. It's just about shifting the story you're telling yourself and then taking those emotions and pouring that back into your actions. Yeah. And for me, the biggest core story that kept me from most of making healthy decisions was I wasn't enough. And for most people, the I'm not enough story is the one that limits them the most.
100%. I know so many people that struggle with this. I mean, what would you say to somebody who's going through those thoughts?
Well, I think it's funny because when people are stuck in this back to limiting beliefs, that's probably the core limiting belief that I hear from both men and women. Yeah. It's usually somewhere around I'm not enough or I can't be loved, like one of those two. Okay. And the core, to be able to reframe that limiting belief into an empowering belief, is just about understanding where the story is coming from. And so there's an exercise that I do a lot with my clients is going, one, we got to get clear on what I'm not enough means. Right. For me...
What do we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah, I'm not enough was another way to say that for me. Like the core story was, if I show up as myself, it will be too much. So it's like, if I really show up in my power, like if I show up and I like speak what I'm like, be honest, and I speak with authority and intensity, I was afraid that it would like scare people off, or that I would lose relationships. And that was like part of that was tied to my story. There's many girls that I liked that when I felt like I was just about to show my heart, then it was like, oh no, then they would run away. And that was the story I was telling myself.
Right.
But then I started to realize there are other stories to choose. And in fact, if one of you is struggling with limiting belief, it first starts with understanding that the reality that you think is true is just a story.
Wow.
And like that is probably 95% of the work, is understanding that what you've been telling yourself is just a story. Because in the moment, especially in the darkest places, that's all you feel. It's all you think is true.
Right.
And to be able to go, and this is the core question to rewrite a limiting belief, which is, what else could it mean? What else could it mean? Like, for me, it was, if I show myself, if I was too much, I'd get rejected. Like, that was my core limiting belief. And I just asked myself, like, what else could it mean? And I'm like, and then I started to realize, like, well, what's also true is that for me, it was relationally. When I showed up and I was vulnerable with my heart, then I feel like the girl that I liked would run away. But what I realized what was also true is that I had the courage to try. Yeah. And so when I got rejected, it didn't mean that I wasn't enough. It just meant I had the courage to try. Right. But when I chose to believe that story, dude, I was like, I'm courageous. Right. So all the emotions, so the story leads to those emotions. I was like, I feel empowered. Yeah. But then when I feel empowered, I take different actions. Wow. Like, instead of running away and escaping, because I'm not enough, I need to go play more video games or sleep. Sleep was my, escape. Yep. I didn't have to believe I wasn't enough, because I started to believe I was courageous. And so if I can wear that as, the cloak that I wear that day. That's who you are. That's who I am. Yeah. If I tell myself that that's who I am, that's what I'll show up as. Wow. And then people started going dude, what happened? I remember people coming up to me and being like, something has shifted in you. Yeah. And I didn't really start to notice it until other people were like, you're being direct and you're actually pushing back. And sometimes I think I've gone to the opposite extreme. I don't give a crap. And but now I've started to show up with more courage. Yeah. And it's still a journey, it's still a process. Yeah. But shifting the story shifted my life. And I think that's for everybody that's struggling with a limiting belief, is just really asking yourself, what else could it mean? Yeah. And then why a lot of people hire me is because they get stuck. And they don't. It's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar. Yeah. And so absolutely. Just having somebody ask questions and guide you through that process. I love that. I get to heal a part of me every time I get to, heal somebody else's journey. Yeah. It's really just me asking them questions and them doing the work. Yeah. But I believe that everybody's most qualified to heal the person they once were. Yeah. And so that's, for me in this journey and kind of where I've landed now, and the whole fractional CGO thing is just a fancy way to say I get to heal, who I was. Yeah. Just through marketing and mindset and a couple of these things. But that's kind of where I've landed. That's very cool. But does that help answer that? Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. And I want to brag on you for a little bit too, because I know you've had some incredible people that you've helped that I know personally, and I love if you have any of those to share. I know some people that were struggling with different things and sort of you helped them kind of figure out that next level, the next notch to turn the heat up. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I'll give you one story, because this is somebody you know, but I won't say who it is. Okay. So I've been working with a client, and this was probably one of my favorite moments because it's a very high-performing guy. And we were just talking about what he wanted.
Okay.
And he said, I don't want to have to worry about money.
Okay.
And I said, well, how much money do you need to make before you don't worry about money?
Right.
And he's like, well, if I make more money, then there's always going to be places I want to give to. And then he just kind of like sat in silence for a second.
Yeah.
Which is how I know that my questions are working.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't think, something along the lines of, I don't think there is an amount of money that will keep me from worrying.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Which is, and that's what we got to was,
yeah.
Worrying about money is actually the other side of that coin is being wise with your money.
Right.
So if the goal is to not worry, you're kind of saying, I don't want to think about money.
Right.
Which is also, I don't want to be wise with money. Because if you think about your money, if you think about your money with fear, it will lead to worry. But if you think about your money through abundance, it will lead to wisdom.
Right.
So oftentimes, like the biggest breakthroughs that I have with clients is simply helping them shift the narrative of I'm in scarcity to I'm in abundance.
Right.
But money tends to be, especially in our industry,
Right.
tends to be the biggest trigger for most people to go from scarcity mode to abundance mode.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
So a lot of the biggest breakthroughs that I've had with him was just asking him questions and him realizing that the goal is no longer to stop worrying about money. The goal is, how do I be the wisest I can be with my money? And so, again, everything comes back to shifting the narrative.
Yeah.
Because if your whole goal is, I just don't want to have to worry about money, you're going to put systems and structures in place where you don't even think about it.
Right.
And that's where you start to make really poor financial decisions because
Right.
you're not even thinking about it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would say a lot of the work in my favorite moments with clients have really just been their own personal realizations from shifting their story. And sometimes it's instant. It happens in the first meeting and they're like, okay, I think we're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, sick.
Okay.
They're like, because people expect it to be this long drawn out
Sure.
and there's a lot of maintenance that has to happen along the way when I work with people.
Yeah.
But most of the time, our first meeting is the one where they do the majority of the work.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's
all right.
we're maintaining and figuring out.
Yeah.
Is there a story that's sneaking in?
Yeah.
Yeah. But probably one of my favorite ones was just watching him realize that the entire worldview he had built around not worrying about money was actually the worst thing for him.
Wow.
And this will be another quote that blew my mind. And again, I don't know where I heard this, but oftentimes we are praying for our next idol.
Wow. Say that one more time.
So, oftentimes we are praying for our next idol.
Wow.
So we go, God, please, help me never have to worry about money again. But then when that happens, we keep praying that money would be the thing we get to depend on and not God. And so, relationship. Oh, God, would you just bring an amazing relationship into my life? Because then that way I don't have to worry about you.
Wow.
I don't have to talk to you. I can talk to this person. God, would you just help me in my career path so that I don't have to keep talking to you about advice and ways to go.
That's crazy. Wow.
And so I think for most of us, we don't even realize it, but we just keep praying for that next thing we're going to create an attachment to. And that attachment ends up, I think this is oftentimes when we're praying, or if you pray, whatever you believe, we put all of our focus in these areas. But the most loving thing for God or for the universe to do is to keep that thing away from us
right
until we're ready for it.
Wow.
And so that's why, all these podcasts are out there about talking about like health and wealth and abundance and all this kind of stuff. But my biggest thing is helping people realize like maybe you're not actually ready for it yet.
Wow.
And you say you want $1 million, but $1 million would ruin your family. Like $1 million would ruin your mindset. $1 million would ruin certain things. And the best thing for you is to develop systems and tools and resources on how to develop a healthy team or family or whatever it might be.
Right.
And
focus on the journey, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of having those, I think it's helpful to have like goals and destinations in mind, but oftentimes it's just being aware and being honest. And for me, this last season for me has just been like, dude, where have I not been honest? And for me, it was around video games.
Yep.
And so I did I'm doing a 90-day video game detox, which has been so freaking hard. But it's the thing that like I'm not honest with myself about. Like,
sure.
And it was the thing that I kept running to for escape. But yeah, it's funny. Everybody has their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it was video games. For other people, it could be other things. Cookies really gets me too.
Yeah, cookies and videos. Yeah. My goodness, wow. If you're not taking notes, I don't know what you're doing. I'm sitting here like my mind is blowing. I'm trying to think through the stuff, and it's like I just got like some gold nuggets, and I resonate with all the things that you're saying, especially the focusing on the journey, like already feeling like you are there in your heart and that you deserve abundance and love and throughout the journey, and not just focus on the destination. But it's so interesting what you're saying about maybe you're not quite ready there, and like, for whoever's not religious, you can call it whatever, but maybe God is putting all these things in place and kind of getting you ready for that, and you need to have that mind shift, right? Like that sort of to get to that next level. So that's so powerful.
1,000%.
Yeah.
The oftentimes that I haven't really released this to the public yet, but like I'll kind of just take a bunch of thoughts and write them down.
Sure.
But I was writing last night, and it was just around. Oftentimes we are running away from like the thing we're like really, really good at, like our gift. Yeah. And like for me, I grew up a pastor's kid too. And so I had all these like people like, oh, when are you going to be a pastor? All this kind of stuff. And, when you're talking about the destination, I was like, no, like I'm not going to, like in the beginning, I kind of embraced it. Like, yeah, I would love to do what my dad did. Sure. But then over time, I'm like, I don't want to be a pastor. It's kind of boring. Like, I don't know if I like, I want, finances seem really fun. Music seems really fun. Right. And I kind of felt like I'd kind of moved away from pastoring people. Sure. And, but even though that was like most of my gift set is all in pastoring. And then last night when I was writing this, I was like, dang it. I've been pastoring people this whole time. Right. It's just through a different vehicle. Right. And I think for oftentimes we keep thinking about like, oh, I want this sexy destination or whatever, insert whatever your goals are. Right. When most of the time, and I hate being super cliche, but like for me, the journey it's where all the fun is. Like, right. I'm going back through pictures of this last year with my wife this morning, and I was like, we did that? Yeah. Like, dude, we went on a cruise, and we went to Puerto Rico, and I'm like, we did that. Right. It's so cool. Yeah. And sometimes we get so focused on that, like, oh, I gotta get here, I gotta get here, I gotta get here. Yeah. And going back through those photos, like, man, I feel so happy of where we are. Yeah. And I tend to be a little bit like, everything's great. And my wife tends to be the person that's like, but let's grow. Yeah. And that dynamic has helped me a ton in life, because like truthfully, if I was left to my own devices, I might just be like, live in a hut somewhere. Like there's part of me that loves that, but I'm so grateful for my wife, because she's like, you've got more left in the tank.
Yeah.
And I love that we have mentors and people in our lives that speak to us and go, hey, I see there's more in the tank that you have left to give.
Yeah, I love that. That's such an important thing, because I feel the same way. Very grateful for my wife as well, and she keeps me in check too. So it's very nice that, and this is another thing too. I've talked, and you probably might have had some conversations with the people that you coach. That, I mean, finances is probably one of the main goals or sort of dreams that people have, right? Like being financially free, being, having the time independence with your family. That's probably one of the main goals for most people, right? And relationships are part of that too, because a lot of times that affects all the areas of life, right? You focus, and I feel at times too, and that you're focusing all of your efforts into one area of life, and then sort of the other areas tend to kind of fall a little bit, and so that's a big. I mean, even speaking for myself, right? That's like my focus has been so much in the business and growing and pushing that forward, that some of the other areas, and like you say, having date nights with the wife, and some of the thing has been sort of slipping a little bit. Fitness, right? Like getting back into some of those things and sort of spinning all the plates. I feel like now removing some of that weight. That was very I mean, last year was pretty stressful, and trying to really work around the clock with side hustle and jobs, and so trying to figure out, all right, how do we make this, which is my passion, make that work so that I don't have to ride 2 trains at the same time, right? And so now I feel like such a weight lifted off my shoulders, like I had an 80-pound gorilla, and so now I feel like this is kind of the time to run, but also to increase back again on the areas that I've missed this last year. And so going back to faith and church and that sort of thing, that's a big win for this year. And going back to the relationship side, having more time to, hey, business will come regardless. I need to prioritize my family, making sure that we're doing the trips and the date nights and everything, because kids are also a big thing, right? Like
1,000%. And my wife and I are not there yet,
right?
But I'm guessing that adds a new layer.
It's a different, I feel like it's, for you guys, you could go to Disney, if you wanted to. But it's with kids a little bit different, because you have to plan around things, and you have to, especially around date nights throughout the week. It's like, all right, we need to get a babysitter, and then this person's not available, or this, and so anyway, so that's usually the big thing. But that's one of the big goals, sort of, for the next chapter in life, is like, how do we continue pushing forward for the business and the finance sort of pillar in my life, and at the same time increase all the volumes on a table, right? Like increasing all the volume and faith and fitness and fun and all these different areas, right?
1,000%.
Yeah.
You were saying something that kind of sparked a thought, which was, there might be one question I have for you that I think might take, maybe one's idea that might help take the weight off for everything that's going to happen in this new season. Mm-hmm. Part of it is the thing that keeps us from our potential most often is not like financial issues or the things that we're consciously thinking of. It is usually resentment. And what I mean by that is expectations, having expectations that you're supposed to be where you should be, or you're supposed to be somewhere at a certain time, is the thing that creates resentment in us. Because my dad said this a ton, but he would always say expectations are just premeditated resentments.
Wow.
So in order to eliminate resentment, to never have resentment ever, is about having really clear agreements on what each of those aspects of your life is going to look like. So, like, what is our agreement as a family around date nights? What is our agreement around business and how that fits into life? And for my wife and I, we have started to make agreements around everything as like small as like the dishes. Like, because when we do that, now it's not like, well, I thought you said you were going to do that, or and there's all the like.
It's unnecessary conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's because she grew up in a home that has certain rules around dishes or expectations around dishes.
Sure.
And so did I. And so, especially.
Are you the one that's leaving the dishes always out?
Yes.
Is this what you're telling me?
Yes, it is.
That's good.
But I like even for my wife and I, it's like making an agreement to go, hey, on Sundays is when we clean all this up.
Right.
Like, that's helped us both have no resentment towards each other.
Yeah.
Or really, it's her towards me. And then but then I have resentment towards myself because I feel this guilt of like, I should be putting them away sooner. And but like, even all of something as simple as the dishes.
Right.
Comes from somewhere else and can trigger all these other things. But even in all areas of life, in faith, in fitness, in finance, in fun. Yeah. One of the things that we've started to do is just setting agreements around those things. Been like, so
much easier.
Like,
that's key. Yeah, I love that.
And that's helped a ton. And there's a bunch of different things you can do. But even if you're like, all right, if you have a partner, or even if you're doing it yourself, like faith, what's the agreement that I want to make to myself around my faith? I'm going to pray this many times, or I want to get a part of a community, and you set that goal. And that's really helped my wife and I. We've done our best recently. We made an agreement to pray together every night, because there was one night where felt hope. I don't know if you ever felt this way, but like one night that felt especially like dark. Like just there's a lot going on that felt like there's things were falling through, finances were down, like all of these things kind of felt like they were collapsing. Right. And I just remember sitting there with my wife, and we're in bed, and I just grab her hand, and I'm like, and we had, like, dude, we hadn't prayed it together in, like, I want to say years at that point. Yeah. And I just was like, let's pray together. And she was like, okay. And we did, and it was the next morning. I'd been doing this challenge that week, which was, like, I want to make $10,000 in a week, which I'd never done before. I'd made $10,000 in a month, but I'd never made $10,000 in a week. Yeah. And the next day is when everything hit the fan, which was like everything was dark, and I was like, well, great. I shouldn't have said this $10,000. Like, now we are negative. Like, it just was this, like, and the next we pray the next day, an idea pops into my brain, and I set up a Zoom call with this guy to talk about the idea, and then that day I made $13,000. Wow! And because of the idea that happened right after the dark night. Yeah, that's incredible. And I was like, there's something powerful of admitting you don't have control of your life. Yeah. And surrendering to it and going, you know what? I can't control X, Y, and Z. But here's the things I can control. Right. And when we prayed and we set our intent, my brain started scanning for those $10,000 opportunities. Right. And I was like, it just like came to me. Oh my goodness. But I think that's how that's how life works when it comes to like, you want to upgrade your life. Yeah. You have to have a big enough reason to do it. Yeah. But you have to have a clear enough vision to go. Like me, it was very clear. I had $10,000 in a week. And I had like literally screenshotted and photoshopped a $10,000 deposit into my bank account. And I was like, had it on my phone. I was looking at it every day. That's funny. And, wow. How powerful is that? Yeah, it blew it. That to me is like, it's just something I'm exploring. And my hope is maybe that story can help serve your audience and going, if anyone feels stuck, just being able to admit, hey, here's the things I can't control. Yeah. Here's the things I can. setting a vision, asking what else could the story mean that you've been telling yourself.
Yeah.
And just see what happens. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy. Just see what happens.
Yeah.
And my hope is that can encourage some of the listeners.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible, Tyler. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, dude.
My mind is like spinning, literally spinning, and I'm so I know you're adding so much value to others. I'm so excited for your journey as well, and with this new chapter for both of us, that exciting time,
Yeah.
But go follow Tyler. I'll put his info in the comments there in the description. But go follow him, show some love. If anybody needs some help around that,
and don't forget to follow this guy if you're not already doing. We know what it's like on the social medias, where you look at the stuff, you're seeing the clips.
That's right.
But you haven't hit that follow button. You haven't hit the like and subscribe button. We know what it's like. There's a lot of cool things ahead for David as well. So make sure you hit that follow button too.
Absolutely. And if you like all this, we'll see you in the next episode. Don't miss it. See you guys.
Peace.
All right.